Well, after months, if not years, of procrastinating, I finally did it. I finally started my collection of hard copies of the manga. It might seem obsolete in the digital age, but I think that having a hard copy of a book or book series that you genuinely like is pretty special. And y'all know the unspoken rule of the internet: if buying isn't owning, then VeggieTales isn't stealing. So yes, this video was supposed to come out earlier, but yeah, I watched Dogman in theaters.
Life's not fair.
What?
Life's not fair.
We're not talking about that today though, because there was a short film for the bad guys that played in front of it called Little Lies and Alibis. That's the only reason why I decided to see it opening weekend. I knew that even 5 minutes of seeing Sharky and friends on the big screen was worth $20. We've been in a bit of a drought for theatrical short films since the two studios that were most known for having them play in front of movies basically stopped out of nowhere. It's a part of the theater going experience that I have a lot of nostalgia for, and since DreamWorks generally isn't known for doing this the same way that Disney and Pixar were, it took me off guard when this was first announced.
And the thing is that short films based on already existing movies playing in front of new ones generally isn't my cup of tea. But I can't help but feel that this was a move on DreamWorks' part to maybe rectify the way that the two Netflix specials may have impacted general perception of what the franchise has to offer.
If this wasn't a course of action that was so rare for DreamWorks, I wouldn't reach that far, but they don't ever do this. It's the mini movie you'd expect to be a bonus feature on a DVD or something, so it wouldn't surprise me if the general reception of Haunted Heist and A Very Bad Holiday factored into this decision a little bit. Not everyone's me, after all. Then I remembered that there is a mini movie bonus feature for the original, Maraschino Ruby, that I accidentally called Machismo Ruby twice. I thought it would be an interesting idea to compare these two short films side by side due to one thing they both have in common. Short films that are companion pieces to movies can be a lot of different things. An epilogue, having events from the film they're based on being told from a different point of view, or giving us more insight on a side character. These two shorts are meant to show us the aftermath of the bad guys saving the world and leaving their life of crime behind. That's something that's very important to get right when it comes to their narrative longevity as a franchise. They may not matter much to the ongoing story, but what they do well is a good foundation for the things that I want to get most out of that second movie when it comes out in August. Aside from one other thing, but I'm not going to say what it is. I'm just glad that the studio considers them a viable franchise. I'm going to start out with Maraschino Ruby, since it's the one that's much more of a direct epilogue to the first movie than Little Lies and Alibis is. I've talked about this a few times before, but one of the most underappreciated aspects of the bad guys' screenplay is its ending. It lets them get their chance to be heroes, but that doesn't come with the immediate acceptance of society that Wolf wants in the beginning, and has them collectively decide to take accountability for the crimes they've committed over the years. And I think having to navigate being reformed villains with the world against them for the time being is an excellent basis for serialized storytelling. So a short about them getting into more trouble with the law, also known as the person they consider to be their arch nemesis, yeah, that works for me. I think the standards are always going to be a little bit lower when it comes to shorts with small runtimes like this. I mean, Sharky's lawyer disguise rivals the red dress as being his best one yet. But this is a good extension of the movie. It's about the police chief setting them up thinking they're going to steal the red ruby because she's not convinced that they've changed their ways, only for them to be one step ahead of her. The inciting incident to this being getting mad over her calling them stupid twice may seem too petty to go through this elaborate plan where they risk getting thrown back in jail, which, yeah, it is, and it makes sense. Think back to that scene where we're first introduced to Diane after coming home from the bank robbery in the opening. They want to be taken seriously, and that's a neat way for a characteristic they all share as a group to carry over to them being now reformed criminals. It's in character because of how petty it is. I also don't mind the push-pop gag carrying over, mostly because Snake's the one keeping it alive. He still enjoys them just as much as ever, but now he does so more ethically. Chief's plan is to provoke the bad guys with a headline in hopes that they'll steal the ruby, as a way of proving her right about them. But it's actually a decoy, and the real ruby's kept on her person at all times. So their counterplan is getting themselves arrested, knowing she'd jump at the chance to lock them up. And Sharky, disguised as their lawyer, informs her not only of their innocence, but also that technically she committed the crime of entrapment, which is when law enforcement coerces someone into committing a crime. These movies are never going to have to worry about propaganda allegations. The bad guys decide that they won't press charges though, if she retracts her statements calling them, well, stupid. I love this for so many reasons. It may or may not be due to the fact that technically Sharky is the one that saves the day here. No, but I actually like that he still gets the chance to use his skills and show off how much more confident he is when he's wearing a disguise. And it is a good plan, even though it is heavily reliant on luck. I wouldn't call it contrived though, just that it feels overly reliant on everyone happening to be in the right place at the right time, but everything coming together still feels feasible with no last minute additions to the story that serve as easy outs. It ends with the reveal reveal that the heist was actually a way of getting them to return the real Maraschino ruby, giving us this moment.
I guess they're not so bad after all.
Don't even say it!
This implies that there's certain dynamics that'll always remain the same in this universe. Police Chief Misty Luggins is the bad guy's J. Jonah Jameson. It simply wouldn't be the same without that lingering distrust and eagerness for them to slip up. The reason why I bring all this up before talking about Little Lies and Alibis is that it's the first time we've gotten a narrative that's distant from a heist story, which Maraschino Ruby still wanted to hold on to give us a chance to do what they're good at as heroes. This short is more driven by the characters' everyday interactions with each other. It's them giving an explanation about why they're late to their parole hearing, a good place in the timeline to continue the story almost 3 years after the original's release. And after 2 years of the Netflix specials being all we've gotten for follow-up stories, it's hard to describe how much of a breath of fresh air this is. Without a doubt, the best piece of media attached to this franchise outside of the original. It makes up for this being the first of the new DreamWorks logos to not include them, though if any characters from the studio deserve to fill their slot, it is Roz and Brightbill. What makes the jokes and framing device at large work so well here is the consistent attention given to the contrast between the bad guys' recounting of these events and how they actually happened, as we gradually watch things continuously get worse for them. Opening these events with the scene of them in a familiar location and being direct with the audience about how they've been able to stay out of legal trouble is a perfect reintroduction, particularly with the way the how did we get here part of the story comes to a close, because it characterizes them as the kind of characters that always manage to get into some kind of trouble and how much their personalities cause tension. Piranha's anger issues, Snake's uncontrollable urges to eat other animals, Sharky being a drama queen. The joke where they're in the hospital and they have to do cardiac arrest on him with no explanation about how he got there, and Wolf on his hands and knees begging him to stay alive. That's one of the best jokes to ever come out of this franchise. Against all odds though, they do manage to make it with 10 minutes to spare, but there's two characters robbing a bank, and as much as Snake insists that they just ignore them, they decide to put a stop to it. If nothing else from either of these shorts, this scene is the one that I think is the most representative of an idea that I want to remain prevalent from the bad guys moving forward. These criminals turn out to be big fans of them, and it makes you think about the lasting impact of their life of crime in a way that fits within the universe. As the most well-known ones before, given that they're animals, of course the ones that follow in their footsteps would look to them for inspiration. Remember, their own reputation in the general public isn't fully restored yet, so this eagerness without the knowledge that they're here to foil their plan is really kind of brilliant, as is the way they decide to have Wolf go about stopping them. He's always been very good at being charismatic with his enemies when he has the confidence that he's one step ahead of them. Flirting with Diane, taunting Luggins, and here he appeals to these wannabes' egos by pointing out all the stuff that they did right and catching them off guard when Tarantula points out a hidden alarm that they missed, causing them to flee the scene on their own. No intimidation or active intervention with the heist required, allowing them to save the day in a more subdued way, subtly implying that nobody's ever going to replace them as the city's recurring villain. It's like Wolf said in the second trailer, when it came to being bad, they were pretty good. But this is a bad guy's story, so we can always expect a little something to go wrong, and that's how we find out why Mr. Wolf is blue, and that all the little lies and alibis were being told to the wrong person in the wrong location. Examining these two short films side by side, I think they show the significance of making sure their redemptive arc isn't their peak as characters. It holds on to their past as villains in creative and ingenuitive ways, and lets them maintain the core characteristics that make them entertaining, while also allowing them to grow and change as characters with the changing circumstances. That's why I prefer Little Lies and Alibis, since its way of embracing this idea feels much more fully realized. Even if it means that I had to deal with the P joke from Piranha. He really is the weakest link of the core crew comedically. That's the one instance of Maraschino Ruby having the edge, plus better utilizing Sharky. And based on what little we've gotten from the second movie so far, it's looking to follow suit in that regard. I don't think there's enough words to truly express how this is one of my most anticipated movies of all time, and both these short films give me the confidence that, antithetical to the existence of those other side adventures, their future is bright. Also, if you want to know my thoughts about Dogman, it was fine, had its cute moments, but was overall pretty messy and a missed opportunity for storylines that should have been told in separate installments instead of being forced into a 90-minute runtime. This one has my favorite cover by far.